Welcome to my channel. These slides that are rolling by are an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. Once you have watched the video, I would appreciate it if you would click the like button and leave a small comment. It's really a big help to the channel. The YouTube logarithm, when it sees that, promotes the channel more and will be more viewers. I would appreciate that very much. Thank you for watching.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is September 2nd, a good day to make plum jam, I guess. We're getting the tail end of Hurricane Ida, the one that did so much damage in the southern U.S., Louisiana in particular, I guess. I think at this point it's not even a tropical depression. I think it's a subtropical depression. But we've had rain all night. Quite a bit of wind this morning and still a lot of rain. Seems to be just normal rain right now, but we've had some real downpours, and I guess we could get some more of those, but I don't look to see any damage in this area. There are probably areas in the province where there could be some flooding if we get the rain that we're supposed to get. Forecast was here 40 millimeters to 70, 40 to 70. And we usually consider 20 to 30 to be a good rainstorm, so things are going to get wet. There'll be no need to water the garden. I harvested a lot of my plums yesterday. I only have the one plum tree, and it produced an incredible amount this year. Last spring, not only the plum tree, but all of the wild apple trees and my apple trees, and incredible amount of blooms on everything. I think it was because of the mild winter that we had. Colder winter, I evidently would have, ruined some of the blossom buds and they wouldn't have opened or whatever, but it was a fantastic spring for flowers and the fruit trees, and evidently it was a mild spring as well, so there must have been a lot of pollinators around. I'll show you what I got, and that's about half of what's on the tree. I've offered what's left to a couple of friends, and they won't be here today in the rain, but they plan to come, I think, tomorrow or whatever to harvest what's left of the plums. But I'm not certain how many batches I'll have to make. I want to show you a product that I'm using for the first time. I've never seen it available here before, is why I'm using it for the first time. I've looked for it many times, but I have prepared 12 500 milliliter pint jars. I don't know if I'll use all of those in the end, but I think I'll end up making at least 3 batches. I won't take you through the 3 batches. I'll show you what I'm doing with the first one, and then I'll bring you back at the very end and show you how many jars I actually get. But right now, let's have a look at this product that I'm talking about. First, maybe we should see the plums. That's a good-sized basket. I use it frequently for harvesting various things out of the garden. I think it was originally with my mother's. That's the oven. That was my mother's picnic basket, but that is full and it is very heavy. So I'm sure I'll do at least 3 batches. And I say the oven just beeped. The way that I sterilize my jars, I wash them and rinse them and put them in the oven on one of the racks. The oven shut off, and once they're all in there, I turn the oven on and let it preheat up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And once it has given me that beep that it's up to temperature, I just shut it off and let it cool down in the oven with the door closed, so that I'm sure the jars are sterilized. The recommended method is to boil them. Well, I'm dealing in Fahrenheit here, but the boiling temperature of water in Fahrenheit is 212 degrees and the oven is 350, so I'm confident that they are well sterilized. Now, this is the product that I'm talking about. I'm using for the first time. I have looked for years in canning season to see if we have a product like this here in Canada, and probably I've looked in the eastern United States to the state of Maine anyway. I'm not certain if it has existed all along and it's just finally making it to this area or whatever, but I've seen several YouTube people that I follow, particularly Andy at McDowell Manor in Australia, uses a similar product. What it is, it has the sugar pre-measured and it has pectin pre-measured and added for a batch of either jelly or jam. if I remember the instructions. I'll turn this one around so I can read it. What I'm making is jam, and it says it should fill 5 to 7 250 milliliter jars. I'm using 500 milliliter jars, so I'll get maybe 3. 3.5 cups of crushed fruit, 875 milliliters, and 1 package of this, and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice to bring the acid up. And the cooking instructions are quite simple as well. I know I'll have to use both of those, so I also have the product that I've always used to make jam, which is Certo, and all it is envelopes of liquid pectin. There's 2 envelopes in each package, and I think you use both for a batch of jam. I have 2 of those as well, so I think I'll probably end up using at least 1 of those. But the first thing to do here is we've got to prepare the plums, I guess. The recipe stipulates crushed fruit. Well, you're not going to be able to crush a plum. That would work well, I guess, if you were using blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, something like that. Softer fruit, you could crush them. What I'm doing is slicing them in half and removing the stone out of the middle of the plum. They're not huge plums, as you can see, whatever the variety is. It's a long time gone here. I don't remember what the name of the variety is. And I don't get enough plums every year to make jam. This is an exceptional year, as I've already said, but it's probably been 3 or 4 years since I've had enough to make jam. But I twist them in half, then you use the paring knife to remove that stone. And I'm putting them in my food processor. And I'll use that to chop them, I guess, into smaller pieces rather than crushed, but I'll bring you back when I get the processor full. I've come up with a faster method than cutting each one in 2 and then trying to get the stone out of it. I go around it like that, cut the top and the bottom off the stone. I'm sacrificing a little bit, but not much. It's going much faster. I pick the plums intentionally when they're not soft ripe. If I leave them until they are soft and ripe, the birds get into them. So well, another 24 hours in the house and they would be just as soft as can be. But they still taste quite sweet. There's a heck of a lot of sugar gets added in this anyway, so it works out quite well to pick them at this time. But that is a faster method of filling up my food processor. We're ready to chop my first batch here. I need 3.5 cups, so I've brought out a measuring cup to measure them. I suspect I'll have to do 2 or 3 choppings before I have enough. And this is what I always do my jellies and jams in. As you can see, it's a pressure cooker. I haven't used it as a pressure cooker in quite a few years because I have an Instant Pot now. But it has such a lovely, thick, heavy bottom on it. Nothing ever burns in it. It's the best thing I've ever seen for making jams and jellies. Let's see what we get going here. That did a pretty good job pretty quickly. Mistaken because I might get a couple of cups out of this first one, I guess. Oh, this is if I don't throw them all over the counter. Well, there's one good cup, and I would say there's another one in there, so I won't make you watch me unload all of them, but I'll need to do at least one more chopping to get my 3.5 cups. Well, one batch only lowered the level in the basket that far. The first chopping that I showed you in the food processor produced about 2.5 cups. So I only needed an additional cup the second time around. I now have 3.5 cups. To that you add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice to bring the acidity up. And you want to use store-bought bottled lemon juice, which might sound a bit strange, but that is a standardized product and has the level of acid that you need. If you used your fresh squeezed lemons, it might be a sweeter lemon. It might not have the correct amount of acid in it. I think this is stabilized to 5% if I can find it on here anywhere. I won't be able to find it now that I want it, will I? I think it's 5% acid is what you're after. Anyway, you want to use the store-bought bottled lemon juice, which I've never used for anything else, but it always has a recipe on it for using it to make lemonade and whatever. I don't quite understand if I want to try that or not. Something else I didn't mention, the brand that I found of this is called Lantic. Lantic is probably the largest supplier of ordinary white cane sugar here. Almost any store you go in, all you see is the Lantic brand name. So they already had the sugar in their factory, what I'm saying. They just needed to add the pectin. These have oxidized very quickly too, which is an indication that they've got a lot of their own natural pectin in them. Not by oxidized, I mean the fruit has turned a brownish color. There's my lemon juice and my mixture, sugar and pectin mixture. And now we move to the stove. So I'll show you what happens when we get over on the stove with it. Well, I've just turned the gas on under this pot, so it'll be a while before it comes to a boil. But the first stage is to bring it to a full boil, and once it has reached that, you let it boil for 4 minutes and continuing stirring. Once it has boiled the 4 minutes, you shut the heat off, and for the next 5 minutes you continue to stir, and it says to skim, and what they're talking about is skimming off the foam. Well, if I actually skim off foam this time, it'll be the first time I've ever done it. Anytime I make jams or jellies, that's always part of the process. You stir for a certain amount of times after it's been cooked to skim off the foam. Well, I find stirring mixes the foam into the jam, and there's nothing to skim off. And I'm not doing anything that's going to be in a presentation at a fall fair or anything anyway to be judged. I wouldn't mind if there was a little foam on the top of each bottle of jam, but I've never had that problem with it in the past. It just seems to dissipate and go into the jam with the stirring, in this case 5 minutes of stirring, so I doubt if there'll be any foam. But I'll bring you back once this gets up to a full boil. Well, it's just come to a full boil, and I set my timer. I now stir and let it boil for 4 minutes. I didn't mention previously, I guess, I have the lids for the jars, the mason jars, in a saucepan here, and they're got the burner onto that low just to warm them up and to sort of sterilize them, I guess, but warming them up softens the rubber ring so that it seals better. So that's ready to go. Getting a better color out of this now that it's boiling. I sort of see a pinkish background. I suppose you'd call that color plum, wouldn't you? I'll bring you back when this has finished its 4 minutes and I start my 5 minutes of stirring it without any heat under it. Well, it's almost the 4 minute period, 10 seconds I guess, and the timer will go off. Turned a lovely plum color. That's it. Shut the gas off. Stop the timer from screaming. And now I stir for 5 minutes. I got to reset the timer for 5 minutes. Stir continuously for 5 minutes without any heat under it. Bring you back and see what that final product looks like. But as you can see, the foam is disappearing already very fast. Well, it's almost the 5 minutes I've been stirring, and as you can see, there's no foam left. There's nothing to skim. No. I've never understood why that's part of the instructions, because I have never yet skimmed anything. It is thickening a bit more as it cools down ever so slightly. It's still about the same temperature as molten lava. I've got 3 of the 500 milliliter pint jars out. I don't believe that the third one will be full. My plan is, if that's what happens, I will fill it with the next batch, finish filling it, and if it doesn't seal, I'll have to can that one. Put it in a hot water bath for 10 minutes, and you bring it out of that, it should seal. Because of the acid, the citric acid from the lemon juice, this is considered a high acid product and doesn't require canning. You just want the jar to seal. And leaving about a centimeter, it says, at the top of each jar. I'll put on the lid and the ring on that one. I think I might have got something around the top of it, so I'll be extra cautious to make sure it seals well and clean around the lid there with some paper towel. No, I didn't get anything. There wasn't anything actually there, I guess. Down further in the jar. And you can just set that aside, and as it cools we should hear the ping or the click, whatever, and it seals. So I'll bring you back and show you if I actually get 3 jars out of this in a second or two here. Well, I hope that pretty plum color shows up. I got 2 full pint jars, and the other one is, I don't know, a quarter or maybe even less than a quarter, which is good. If it was half to 3/4 full, I would be a bit concerned about it sealing the next time when I add from the next batch. But what I will do is, that'll be the first one that I'll finish filling with the next batch, and that should seal for me quite nicely. And I suppose if it carries on like this, the very last batch that I do, there will be one with a quarter of a cup, and I'll just refrigerate that and use it immediately. But I'm very pleased with the color. Far too hot to taste it yet and see what it tastes like. Anyway, any of this stuff is better after it has set for a week or two before you open a jar. But it is by far my favorite jam. Next to that is black currant. I didn't pick my black currants again this year. The birds got them. I could have picked them, but I didn't. So this winter I'll be using plum jam on my toast a lot. Well, I'll bring you back and show you the final product after I have made at least another 2 batches. Well, this is the beginning of canning the second batch, which I think has turned out just as well as the first one did. But the jam, the quarter of a jar or whatever I had of jam here, had solidified, which is a good sign the jam's going to set. So I put it back in the microwave on high for a minute to heat it up good. And hopefully that way my jar will seal. As I said, if it doesn't, I will have to can this one. 10 minutes in a hot water bath will do it. But I wanted you to know what it was that I actually did in the end. And this stuff is really setting up well. It's on the ladle that I'm using, and then the bottom of the pot after I've got everything out of there. Everything here. And the jars have started to seal. I've heard one go ping. Sometimes you don't hear them and they sealed anyway, but it's easy to tell if they've sealed. The top of the lid has a little dome if it isn't sealed. So I will bring you back, as I've said before, and show you what I get when I finish making jam sometime today. Well, I made 9 pint jars. That is 3 recipes. 2 with that product that I showed at the beginning. And then I discovered that I had 1 package of Cerdo crystals. Cerdo is owned by Kraft Foods Canada Limited. And on their website, the only recipe they give for plum jam is made with the Cerdo crystals. You can find one online that somebody else has devised, and they use the liquid Cerdo, but too much work to try that just to find out if it works or not. So my package of Cerdo crystals expired 2 days ago, so I figured they're safe. I'll eat those. But 9 pints, that's enough. I still have, still maybe close to a quarter of that basket of plums left. I'll give those to one of the two people, whoever shows up first, I guess, coming to get the last of the plums off of my tree. And certainly my preference in the future would be to use the product that has the sugar and the pectin in the same thing, whether it's made by Atlantic Sugar or who makes it. But I hope I can still find that next year, or maybe I'll even buy a lot of it this year and stockpile it for next year. I still want to make maybe hot pepper jelly, so we will see. Maybe I'll buy some of that and do the hot pepper jelly with it. But it's a great product. Everything is all pre-measured. I don't know how it compares price-wise. I don't even know what I paid for them. I was just so glad to see them. I grabbed two of them and went with it. So anyway, Plum Jam, 9 pints. That'll do me for more than 1 year, that's for sure. Thank you very much for watching.